capacity as the Board of Finance for the Village of Los Ranchos will convene their budget workshop/working session. The budget workshop working session will be streaming on the Village of Los Ranchos website and the Village Facebook page. At this time, I'm going to call the roll. Trustee Rael is excused. Trustee Lewis? Present. Trustee Pacheco? Present. Trustee Riccobeni?
Present.
I've got a bit of a script here, and I'll start with a discussion of the Riccobeni graphs and how we got to the projected revenue number of $3,063,476 of gross receipts tax and $3,313,464 overall. CFO Tammy Silva, can you tell us about that?
Yes, good morning, Mayor, trustees. We went ahead and did this graph. And you're wanting me to talk about how we budgeted for that amount? Is that correct? Okay. So what we did is we went off of the revenue as it comes in on a cash basis. So even though our July payment is the first one of the fiscal year, it's really 2 months in reverse. So really that's for activity that happened in May of that year. So we budget based on a cash basis. So it's from the distribution month, not the business month. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay.
Does that take care of it, Tammy?
If I could jump in.
Go right ahead, Ann.
So good morning, everybody. It's really exciting to be back here a year after what was a very intimidating last budget workshop, and we really didn't know what was going on. But I first want to say thanks to you all, the governing body, and the leadership of Mayor Lopez for helping to provide a framework to guide our last fiscal year. I think it was that framework that really helped us all stay on task, on budget. Staff did an amazing job doing a lot with a little, and many staff wearing 2 and 3 hats. So I think kudos go to all of us for surviving last year. And so it's great to be in today, in this year, in such great fiscal shape.
Thank you, Ann.
So I also just wanted to mention the Riccobeni graph, we call it. And you all see this graph every month because we send it out when we get our GRT. And so what Tammy just explained to you is that, we have been tracking our GRT with the spreadsheet and graph that Trustee Riccobeni put together for us very carefully. And it is these numbers that are guiding and informing our revenue projection for next year. That's all I want to say.
Thank you, Ann. With that, we're going to move into the general fund departments. So I'm going to let Administrator Ann Simon go over the executive general fund department budget. Go ahead, Ann.
Okay, so thank you, Mayor. So just like last year, we are going to go over all of the general fund department budgets. We kind of skipped over the revenue. If anybody has any questions about this first revenue page, 1 of 35, I'm happy to, and Tammy and I are happy to answer any questions. Before I get into executive, does anybody have any questions about how we came up with revenue?
I have a few, I'd like to know your thought process, a couple of the key, not every category, but some of the main categories. And obviously the one down the page, you read from trailer park and storage units, that was pretty obvious.
Mm-hmm.
But at the top, franchise tax, state share of gross receipts taxes.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the thought process for how you came up with those numbers.
I'll do franchises. We don't expect to change very much. That's why we're holding that fairly steady, possibly a slight decrease. but for the most part level funded from last year. So you'll see the blue column is the annualized amount that we hope to get at the end of the year. The green is what we're projecting for next year. Tammy, do you want to talk about the GRT?
Yes, so,
Franchise tax. So that's, 21% decrease. Was there something that made it higher this present year? Get to the 4.4 number?
So Mayor Trustee Lewis, the reason there's a decrease, you're seeing a big decrease. If you look at fiscal year 2020, that was the year that I used to do a lot of these because 2021 was such a weird year with COVID. And so I actually used fiscal year 20, which is all actual numbers. 2021, which is the blue column, is also annualized through the end of the year. And so I'm not 100% sure we'll get all of that tax to end up at the 424. That's just an annualized number, but I did go off of the franchise tax for 2020. If you think that that's too conservative, I can definitely give that a different look.
Again, I just want to understand the thought process. I don't know enough about it, but I have an opinion of it one way or the other. With a significant increase from 2020 to 2021 and then back down. I didn't know what it caused 2021 to be significantly higher. I was curious about that. And then state share, those receipts that.
Yes, so Mayor Trustee Lewis, so on the, all of the gross receipt taxes, we have a certain percentage that is allocated to 3 different line items, 2 of them in our general fund, 1 of them into our our road fund. And so I used the 2020 numbers for this because again, our GRTs were kind of all over the place with COVID. And so what I did was I took the numbers, the actual numbers we got in the Riccobene graph that we were talking about earlier. And I did a 15% reduction because when we started this budget with the March numbers, we were down 15% overall in our GRTs for fiscal year 2021. So I took 2020's number and I did a 15% reduction from that. It looks like at this point, because we have received another month of taxes, that we may end up only being about 10% down from what we thought when we initially started the budget process. So again, if you think this is a little too low, once we get, of course, we have to finish our budget before the actual full numbers come in.
Right.
But right now it looks like we're about a 10% down. So I can also adjust that to be 10% at this point if we think that's a closer number we want to see.
I guess is that too loud, Kiko? Should I lower it a little bit? Kiko. Okay. I think it's just a matter of trying to estimate where we think. I know when we did numbers last year, we had really dropped them the first 6 and then we started bringing it back, 5% a month or something. I can't remember what numbers we used to build it back up. And I don't know if this number is too conservative.
Well, I think
it seems that things are bouncing back.
Let me
And
interject.
4th Street's done. That 2020 included 4th Street in the middle of that.
Right.
So I don't know how we stack up to those numbers.
So Trustee Lewis, let me interject quickly. If you look at the graph, the numbers in the graph, and I have them here on my phone, as of now, we have 2,325,402 in the GRT. We still have 2 months to go. So it's going to be at least 2.6 or maybe even 2.7. We budgeted 2.1 last year. We're budgeting 2.6 this year. I believe that we're going to be back to the 3.1 in this year that's coming because COVID is going to be completely gone. I mean, the governor's already said that the state's probably going to be reopened completely on June 30th. I don't think it would be unwise. I don't know that you need to change the budget to put in a higher number, but it's my personal opinion that number is going to be higher. It's going to be higher. How much? We don't know for
Sure,
sure.
save that to a mid-year adjustment, I guess.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes,
So
exactly.
just a quick question, the result, I like that we're budgeting for less.
Right.
If we end up bringing in more than we do that at mid-year, is that the result of?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So, Mayor, trustees, you'll see at the bottom of page 1 of 35, that overall, we're budgeting for 17% overall.
Less. Yeah.
70%
Exactly,
less.
17%.
And I realize a lot of that is the trailer park and storage units and some of those things.
Exactly.
And
And
I-
one of the other big things, if I could point out, is the investment income. You'll see that that's quite a bit down. And part of that is because we've moved over to the Bank of Albuquerque. So we don't have that reserve that we're gaining interest on.
And you know, I'm the last person that would say to increase the numbers, except for the standpoint, if it's tightening down the budget of providing services to the village residents, then we're not being prudent if we don't pick it up some. But if we
Well-
can adjust it at mid-year and you guys, as we get through this budget process, are comfortable with all the departments, then I'm good with that. But
So let me offer this comment, trustee Lewis. Historically, the mid-year budget adjustment was almost mandatory. In other words, we always did a mid-year. The first year I became mayor, we just didn't do it. Right now, I can't tell you why we didn't do it, but we just didn't do it. But we did a mid-year, but it wasn't at the mid-year. It was like a month later. I think now we should actually do a mid-year. We should go back to that schedule where in the January meeting, we actually do a mid-year budget review because we're going to know. We will know. So that's my comment on that.
And that's the only reason I was looking at it, is because it's not enough revenue at the beginning of the budget. If we needed more for the services, then because I agree with you, Mayor. I think it's going to be higher. And to make it $100,000 or $200,000 higher, if that's a necessary in the budget, then that's just something I think we should look at. But I'm sure not one to advocate increasing that revenue unless we need it for the different budget categories.
Well, may I offer another comment?
Sure.
We just got some interesting information via email yesterday. It appears, and I'm going to let Ann talk about this, that the American Rescue Act is going to be providing $1.43 million to the village of Los Ranchos. This email says we may get the first half on June 10th. So if that's true, then you're looking at a totally different budget. You're looking at the other sheet, you know, the sheet that she's talking
Right.
about, the sheet that has the 1.43. So we're probably not going to know until July, which is still in time
Right.
to submit the budget to the state about what that budget's actually going to look like, because I think by then we're going to know if we got that money on June 10th, when we're going to get the next installment. And I'm very hopeful that we'll know where we can spend it. I mean, this email that we got yesterday tells us where they think we can spend it. But I want more official information,
Sure.
you know, about, yes, you can spend it here, you can spend it there. And do you want to say any more about that?
Not really. I think you did a good job, Mayor.
Okay, all right.
I think as we go through the categories, then maybe to talk a little bit about, you know, we really squeeze this department down or something. If that comes true, here's a place that we would like to put some more money back.
We intend
Here's
to
a
do
place
that.
Put some more money back so that we know, you know, we're approving a budget, but we have Plan B budget if that money comes through. Okay, okay.
So go ahead and continue with the executive.
All right, so let's go ahead and turn to page 2
Can I
of,
just dive in real quick?
Sure.
With regard, and I just want to make sure that I'm understanding the trailer park rental piece. I'm assuming that that is all based on the village center?
Mhm.
That things are changing there? Okay, just wanted to clarify.
Mayor, Trustee Pacheco, we have sent out letters to the residents, and we've asked them to, that October 30th is a good date to shoot for, to start to move out, so that we can make sure that that's really clear, so that when the folks at Palindrome are ready to start construction in January, that everyone's found a place to live, that people have relocated safely, and just giving them plenty of time.
Now, have you done the same thing with the storage units?
October 30th is what we've,
And is it everybody, or is it just going to be a certain amount and that'll just kind of trickle down as the property's needed? Do we know?
Mayor Trustee Pacheco, yes, we have given the same letter to all tenants.
So that October date
October
is for both residents and storage unit folks.
Storage unit customers, the residents of the trailer park, and the businesses along 4th Street.
Like the gun shop and,
Mhm.
right.
With the infrastructure, I think when they get ready to start the infrastructure, it needs to basically be
Everybody needs to.
everybody gone, right?
Thank you.
Okay, so if we're ready to move on to Fund 0100, Executive Legislative. I think the biggest numbers in there that are different from this year are per diem mileage training. Those are, and subscriptions and membership are about the same. So we have scheduled a couple of training trips. The mayor has been invited to Washington DC, if that goes forward, on 2 different trips. One a fly-in with the League of Cities and one a fly-in with Bernalillo County to talk to our legislators about some
Federal
federal
funding.
appropriations. And then we've got some training in there, some per diem, and then our subscriptions and membership include the League of Cities, the Municipal League, which provides all of the staff with really essential training, advocacy up in Santa Fe, insurance, lots of benefits from the Municipal League membership, and then the Council of Governments. Any questions on the executive?
You want to move on to judicial if there aren't?
Yes.
Okay, go right ahead.
On judicial, you'll see an increase in training. There's one conference that Judge Ma has asked that we budget. He wasn't allowed to do any travel and training this past year, so he's asked for this one line item. We also have a slight increase for his assistant, which is in keeping with the staff changes here in Village Hall. On election,
Can you explain that a little bit? I mean,
I'm sorry?
am I saying that that's wages part-time?
Mhm.
So that's
Judge-
doubling?
Judge Ma has a part-time assistant.
Right. And so as I'm reading this, we're doubling it from last year almost?
Yes, Mayor Trustee Lewis. So the reason why is, again, because of COVID and the lack of sessions that he had this year. If you look at 2020, that was up closer to 5,300. And then, so that takes into consideration if he has more sessions, if she has more items to handle, and then also an increase in pay. So taking both of those into consideration, and then also taking into consideration, even though she's part-time right now, her hourly can range anywhere from 12 hours to up to about 18 hours. So if she were to be up at the higher end of 18 hours a week, that's where that increase you're seeing.
Okay.
You ready to move on to elections?
Sure.
Danielle, I think you're on.
Good morning, Mayor and trustees. As you see in the budget, there is 0 in elections. In 2019, the village opted to join Bernalillo County for the regular local election, so there is no cost to the village. This year, we will be having an election in November of 2021. It's November 2nd, where we will be electing 2 trustees and 1 municipal judge. We will be presenting the resolution in the June meeting this year, so we can notify Bernalillo County of our intent.
Any questions about that on the governing body? Okay, we're now up to financial. Tammy, it's Your time.
Okay, Mayor, trustees, so for the financial, you will see the biggest increases are for the audit fees. The reason that that audit fee is going up is because this year we will have a single audit. If we receive more than $750,000 in federal funds, it automatically triggers a single audit, which is basically a second audit within the audit, where they look at the federal funds specifically. So that is a requirement by the federal government. So that increases our fee. So that's where that fee increase is coming from. You will also see on a slight increase on the computer support. That is for the Abila software, which is the accounting software. There was a slight increase this year for the monthly support on that. So you'll see $142 increase there. And then you will see a nice decrease on the bank charges. So this is in our efforts to move in local, going to the Bank of Albuquerque. What we have here is we have a new account there, and those fees are going to drop significantly. I anticipate them potentially dropping even further than this, but I wanted to make sure I was conservative in case. Basically, the fees are based on how much we have in the bank. So if at any point we have a big expenditure, as we have these construction projects coming on, if it were to drop significantly, our fees would go up a little bit. So I wanted to make sure that I accounted for that.
So Tim, are the services exactly the same at Bank of Albuquerque from where they were before?
Yes, in terms of what they provide to us. Yes, and actually they're providing us a few more services. There are services that I believe Bank of America probably has and offers as well, because they are a big bank, but they've never reached out to us. So we now have the option to do all of our deposits that are checks here in office. I have a scanner set up. I can put them in, so that doesn't take somebody out of the field to run to the bank. The only time we'll have to do deposits now at the bank is if we have actual cash. And so they provided that service to us. We also have something called Positive Pay, which we upload a check register to them. And if any exception comes through, whether it's like a check washing situation or the payee is different from my register to what they got in the bank, they have a hold on that until 3 p.m. and they send me an email every morning if they get an exception, so that I can say, no, don't put that through, or go ahead, that's fine to put through. So we have a few extra security measures that they offered us in place for that. But everything else, we have the exact same ability, like I said, or more.
Great, thank you.
And you said they're not requiring us to keep a CD or deposit or something there?
So they require us to still have pledged collaterals by state statute. So they do offer the pledged collaterals. We aren't required to have a CD. We still do have a CD through Bank of America. That does not mature until January. And so if we want to move it at that point, we can, but that is just earning a really, really tiny amount of interest. And that's been sitting there for many years. So we don't have to move that. That has nothing to do with our actual bank account. But Bank of Albuquerque does not require us to have a CD or any additional type of accounts with them.
Is that something we can look at? I mean, the money we get from the state, on our income is pretty, it's a pittance. And I don't know if the bank would offer some kind of better interest rate if we, went a little bit long. I mean, if this CD's been sitting at Bank of America for years, then maybe it's worth going out and getting a 3 or 4 year CD and getting a better rate.
Yes, absolutely. We can definitely look at that and see. I will definitely make note of that.
Are we keeping, I know it goes out for RFP, but we don't have to change auditors.
That is
I mean-
correct. We do not have to change auditors. You are only required to roll off of your auditor onto a new one if you have an audit that is into an RFP. So since ours does not reach that limit, we can stay with them, I believe, up to 12 years.
Oh, really?
Yes,
Okay.
How long have we been with them now?
3 years.
3 years. I always feel like it's good to switch every, 5 or something, but I didn't know if we could keep the same ones for another, for a while or what. So, good.
Any other questions about financial? Okay, Tiffany is here. We're ready to move into the Planning and Zoning Department. Tiffany, why don't you go through your budget?
Certainly. Mayor, trustees, so the first half of this, I guess, this fund is for staff. And in this, we do have budgeted a part-time code enforcement officer and a planning and zoning intern who would also be part-time. And then I'll just proceed through the line items and answer any questions at the end. The professional services for the master plan, naturally, we are not reviewing the master plan at this stage, so this fund has been depleted. However, this line item will be kept in anticipation for the review that will happen in 2024 and also future master plan in 2035. The professional services for engineers line item is primarily used for professional services and any engineering review that we need. And also this year for participation in a regional drainage study. The EPA stormwater monitoring and stormwater team participation are standard costs that we accrue to pay for our participation in the Middle Rio Grande watershed stormwater permit. This is done with other agencies and jurisdictions in this watershed. And this pays for monitoring that we need to do in the Rio Grande River and participation for communication and public outreach for stormwater education. The construction regulation services is a cost for Bernalillo County permitting our building permits. The hazardous mitigation plan is budgeted for every 5 years, a review, an update of the plan. Right now, the plan is still being updated and reviewed at the state and federal level before local adoption. But the 5,000 in this line item is for implementation this year of that plan. Fire inspection services is a service that we used to provide for businesses and is no longer applicable. Printing, publishing, and advertising is for advertising costs in the Albuquerque Journal. Whenever we don't have any public hearing items, we still need to advertise in the Journal that we won't be having a planning and zoning meeting. Code enforcement is primarily budgeted for general costs of code enforcement, including cleanup or going to court. 4,000 of this line item is budgeted for a short-term rental code enforcement company that would help us to identify non-compliant short-term rentals and also provide a 24/7 hotline. And subscriptions and memberships is a combination of education and training, the Adobe suite, and participation and membership in the American Planning Association and New Mexico chapter and the New Mexico Floodplain Managers Association. I stand for any questions.
Tiffany, can you touch in a little more detail on engineers, professional services? I mean, I know it went way up and then it seemed that then we adjusted it mid-year because it was already way over what we had budgeted. So why do you think it's going to come down to 15,000?
I believe that's a question better answered by Administrator Simon or Tammy.
Yes, so Mayor, trustees, the reason why it was up so high this year is we had a large expenditure for the engineers over at the Agri-Nature Center for the water line over there. So we don't anticipate having something so large again. That was actually a one-time cost over there. It was about $20,000. So that's why it was so high this year.
Okay, it's still, I mean, if that was 20, it still puts us at 21,000 for engineer services. I'm wondering if 15 is just too low. But, again,
If I could interject,
yeah, I mean,
obviously.
you know more about engineering down and where you
Sure.
think will be.
I think 15,000 may be low, but we don't know. We don't know what's coming at us, at least in the first half year. So at the point of the mid-year of budget adjustment, if something pops up where we really do have to have an engineer to help us with a certain element, that number can be raised. It's true, 15,000 is very low. It really is.
Isn't that about where we were in
Yes,
19?
Yes.
And 18?
in that range. We were in that range. That's the best answer I can give you.
Again, and I think it's just a philosophical thing, you know, do we get this a little higher now or wait till mid-year? And I think that's a philosophical for you all as to how you feel comfortable running the budget. I know when I became a trustee, it took me a couple of years to get my head around a mid-year. It's like, wait, we set a budget. Now we're just gonna adjust all this stuff. And I didn't really get that. So I think it just depends on where you all are comfortable, sure, whether to raise it now or wait and see. So,
Mayor and trustees, if I could also, we had 9,000 budgeted initially. We raised it just because of that sewer line for the water. This time, the only thing that we know for sure is the 12,500 for the participation in the regional drainage study. It's for the engineering study.
Gardunio.
That we're
Gardunio.
working on with the MAPCA to handle Gardunio, 4th Street, Playa del Padre, all that whole area.
That's correct. That is correct.
okay, we don't see any other engineering services out there with
We don't know.
roadways or 4th Street or,
So Mayor
Anything else
trustees,
that could be
most of
attached?
that can come out of capital and some of our roadway funds.
okay.
Unless Tiffany has any other ideas for. where
Right,
we would
so
spend engineering money.
our engineer costs are primarily for grading and drainage plan reviews from the village as designated engineer. And that's done for commercial and residential development, and that is a cost that's forwarded to the developer. So we do have some money for the interim where, you know, they charge us and then we are reimbursed by the applicant. However, those costs are usually handled by the applicant.
Okay, that clears a lot of it up. And then just, can you go in a little bit more detail about the part-time wages? That money there. So it's gonna be a part-time code enforcement and part-time, catch everything you said there.
Yes, so this part-time line item is for a part-time code enforcement officer budgeted right now for 20 hours a week, and a planning and zoning intern at $10 an hour.
How much do you see them working, Tiffany, at that position?
So if they're students, this is likely to vary during the semester. If they're employed over the summer, they would be able to increase their hours. However, during the school year, we would have to be flexible. Ideally, somewhere between 10 and 20 hours per week.
And is this a position that we've had in the past?
Yes,
So
yes,
it's something that we
yes.
do on those.
She was the intern when
Right.
Tim was planning and zoning director.
But it's something that we've done.
Yes.
always.
Yes.
And if I could also mention, trustee Pacheco, we have a position for a planner, and that is currently not being filled. So this would sort of take the place of a planner position and assist Tiffany.
Any further questions for Tiffany and the planning and zoning department? Okay. Administration, let's start with Ann and then move to Tammy and Danielle. So Ann, go ahead.
Thank you, Tiffany. Okay, so you'll see we're fairly close to where we were last year. Some of the biggest changes are contract services for the storage facility. We have tentative close date for Raul of December, January. So we're really only budgeting for half of his time. Attorney fees, we're keeping them at the 2020 level, a little bit less. Let's see, other highlighted issues. I think the big thing is utilities. Utilities, the cost of utilities has gone up significantly since 2020, you'll see. So we budget a little bit higher even than this year. And Maria's contract comes out of here as well, contractual services, temporary labor. And while we have a budget in here that's higher than last year, it's lower than 2020 because we're able to offset some of her time to the grant. They have allowed us to charge $8,000 of the DOT grant to admin. Any questions about general?
Sort of backing up, did somebody get moved into, I mean, you're cutting 2021's healthcare in half. Back to more like a 2020 number. But over here in, yeah, you know, because you go back to planning and zoning, the healthcare cost cut, it gets cut in half from 2020 to 2021, and now we're taking it back up. We're sort of doubling it in planning and zoning, but then in admin, it's cutting down, you know.
So there are 2 employees paid out of this fund and
In
in the general.
general, okay.
Mhm. And it just depends on who opts in to the healthcare option that we have as a benefit.
Okay, and you're comfortable with the healthcare numbers at this point?
Yes, Mayor Trustees. So we do have the new healthcare numbers, and we have discussed with everyone. Their open enrollment comes up here in a couple weeks, but we have also just had conversations with everyone, seeing if there will be any changes and taking that into consideration. So those are actual numbers based on actual rates and what the employees intend to sign up for.
But that could change if a new employee comes on, right?
That is correct. If a new employee comes on and they are full-time, then they would have access to benefits as well.
Okay, any further questions on the admin?
And you know what, Mayor, Mayor Trustees.
Go right ahead.
And that is taking into consideration. So when I do the payroll budget, I do take into consideration every position that we plan to fill. And we always do a family anticipation for healthcare because that is our most expensive. So we do take that into consideration. Also, if we have a vacant position, we'll budget for healthcare for family. And then if they choose not to, or they choose something lower, that cost would come down.
One more question, just as the difference in computer support.
Okay, so Mayor Trustees, it's really great that we have our computer specialist right there in the corner.
Right?
So a couple of things are going on there. First of all, we've had a great bargain from our friend Kiko, but we have to go out for bid this year. So we are anticipating that our computer services costs will go up. The other thing is Kiko has recommended some increases in our functionality. So we're going to be needing some new computer services that help us with the streaming, with just the connectivity.
Let me offer this comment, Trustee Lewis. Up until 2020, early 2020, even though we used to show everything on the screen, we really didn't stream our
Right.
meetings.
Right.
But now that we're going to go back to face-to-face meetings, soon, hopefully, we want to continue streaming. We want to be able to do that because we've learned that it allows other folks to watch our meetings and they don't have to come over here. I mean, that's really
Right.
a big benefit. So that's going to take some time and effort.
That's why I knew there was an answer to that, and I was just curious where the improvements are going to be. I think, you all, Kiko and everybody did a wonderful job.
Absolutely.
Thrown at us in 2021 and 2020. And so, yeah, how we move forward technology-wise is huge. Now, does that require more equipment? Will it be new equipment,
Yes.
computers and stuff?
Yes, Mayor and Trustee Lewis. That, any equipment that we buy will come out of supplies, and you'll see that we bumped that up a little bit, not as high as it was in 2020, but higher than 2021. And that is because we are going to need a new switch. Do you want to talk a little bit about some of the things that you're recommending, Kiko?
So when COVID kind of hit, everything in the village hall, and this happened all over the country or world for that matter, but everything kind of got put on hold here. So things that would have been spread out over the course of last year just kind of got pushed back a little bit. From an equipment cost, there were budgeting items that we just didn't have to focus on, and especially because we didn't know where the budgets would, shake out at the end of COVID and all that. So there are aging computers, there's some aging network infrastructures that we've been talking about actually for several years, about starting the process of doing that, and just kind of put all of that stuff on hold so that we could get through COVID, right, and do
Right.
that. One of the other things that, in reference to what the mayor was mentioning was, there's this precedence now over the last year of live streaming video and different things like that. And I'm not suggesting that I'm not advising that continue. That's up to you guys and the board and Danielle. And there's some good pros and cons to all of that. But at the end of the day, those discussions need to be had now and budgeted for now, so that if we end up deciding, hey, we want to continue to live stream videos and stuff, the village kind of just doesn't have the infrastructure to do that. I would say professionally at this point. We've been mandating even what we're doing. I mean, there's an iPhone right there and a camera, and it works for right now, but we want to give the village the best foot forward and stuff. So there are some additional infrastructure costs that would be required to be able to have a decent quality, professional quality streaming system, and that would allow it to look well both here and for people who are online. So and then just replacing some older computer equipment, and that's just normal throughout the year. I think this year my recommendation, I sent an email to Ann yesterday, was budgeting, if possible, to replace 3 to 5 of the older computers that are around. They don't have to be replaced. The problem is if you don't budget to it and then one of them breaks, then where's the money going to come from? So it's better to budget for it and then not need to replace them than to not budget for it and then have to replace them. So and I'm happy to answer any other questions about any of that.
I just saw the new Apple computer, and wow.
Yeah,
Technology's
and they're
leaping forward,
expensive.
and they're expensive. And so I guess my question is, because I think that is, I think it's a very big part of how we project ourselves as a village.
Totally.
And as a government. And so is that budget big enough? I can't believe I'm saying that, Ann.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
For
Thank
today,
you.
it's big enough.
But I know, I just know, I know that's the tendency to bandage things for years. But I know the technology has leaped forward now in this last year. And so I guess my question is this enough to get us where we want to be?
I don't have that in front of me, but the numbers I did give Ann in the email I sent you last night would account for that. So I don't know if those have been adjusted within this or not.
Mayor, Trustee, we have not adjusted for everything that Kiko's recommending. But we can take another look at that, bump it up if we need to.
And I think the only other thing that I didn't mention would be the security system was really old, including cameras and things like that. And in fact, it died this year completely. And so being able to, that's also included in the budget. And then some additional recommendations. And I set out the email that I sent to Ann was some recommendations of like, these are the things I think need to be done. And then some suggestions of what, hey, if there's budget, this would be nice to get this done, which would include things like updated door access using like HID systems, like cards instead of keys, and you're able to track people coming and going at both locations, both here and at the Agri-Nature Center. It also, the new systems include, because most phones come with an NFC chip in them, and you can use a phone to unlock, to hold your phone up to the door, and it would unlock a door, and you would sign that. And so there's some other technology stuff. It doesn't all have to be done, type thing, but these are at least to put it on the radar so that the discussions can be had rather than trying to find the budget for it, without having them. So
I think that's, for me, I put an asterisk by that, because if we do
Okay.
get these federal funds, et cetera, I think what you just said too, the security aspects now, and being able to track who's come and who's gone, and who has access and who doesn't have access, I think that's huge. So anyway, that I would put an asterisk by that. It's
I appreciate that, and
something.
as we get ready to open the doors, currently they're locked, and we let people in, by appointment, or if there's a delivery or something. So as we start to open up to the public, it'll be important to have something in place.
I do have a question with regard to the website. So my understanding is that we are revamping the website.
Equal can tell you.
Is that also included in your, kind of your overall?
the budget for the redesign of the website was already been approved and already done like that. There are some other things that we're looking at with Ann and Jennifer to update a database backend for ordinances, and we're putting numbers together as we speak for that. But the website redesign itself was already budgeted, and
It's already budgeted and spent, so
there'll just be some added.
So July 1, we will have a new, actually, I believe our go live date is the 6th.
the 6th,
Of June?
of
July.
Okay, of July, okay.
Right at the new fiscal year, we'll have a new website for
great.
the village, and that's all paid for. But what hasn't been fully accounted for yet is how we display and search our ordinances, which currently are like these really cumbersome and clunky PDFs. There's a subscription that you can purchase through MuniCode, which allows all of the ordinances to be searched, sorted. It's a really excellent layer on the site, and we do have budget for that in our subscriptions.
And what about in terms of like e-commerce, I want to call it, if somebody wants to pay their business license online, is that all already accounted for, or is that still going to come into?
that's actually already built into the existing system. It's not as, we're making it easier. So the infrastructure is already in place even today for that. And it's all done through the web right now. But it'll get easier with the redesign of the website and how it's integrated into the website. And then we are also, as part of the redesign of the website, in updating as many forms as possible to electronic submission forms, like for if somebody wants to do a barn rental or things. So it's not, there's always, they can still fill out a paper if they want, but the idea would be that everybody, from July 6th on, that people will be able to submit things online as much as possible, which will reduce paper trails and things like that. So a lot of what you're asking will be integrated into the new platform, even though that some of it's already in place now, because we had to upgrade it to get it ready for the new platform.
And Mayor and trustees, may I also add that when switching over to Bank of Albuquerque, that is something that they offer also. When we switch our credit card machines over to theirs, which I'm working with them on, they did say that they have the ability to give our IT person access to just add a button to be able to click on to do it online as well. So that's something else that we can work with the bank as well.
Okay, if there are no further questions on
I
admin.
have one.
Go right ahead, sir.
If it's all right, if I'm going to back us up just to hear, this conversation just made me. I think starting with financial, Tammy, but we're on on this discussion of computer technology, et cetera, do you have a wish list for financial administration?
I
I
do
mean,
not.
you guys did a great job. We clamped down on a budget last year.
Mhm.
I think you have run a very lean, well-run machine. Now we start talking about technology and computers. So I thought, yeah, let's back up a hair and just say each department head, here's your budget. But boy, if we had a little more money, what could we do? And I find that in business, I don't ever want to walk out of a meeting and people going, man, if he would just listen to me, I could say this. Or he should be doing this, that he's just cutting it off too short. And so is there something for your department?
No, I think pretty much everything is working pretty well for my department. I will say that at some point, one of the nice things about the cloud is that we can choose to go back to PCs at any point. And actually the cloud works in a PC environment. And so a lot of the banking software and a lot of the, we're finding out now that I've switched over to the new bank, and then a lot of my software actually works better on a PC than on Mac. So at some point, whenever we're able to, if someone needs a different laptop or something, if I could move back to a PC, that would actually be a little helpful. That's something that I've found in the last couple of weeks, especially working with the bank. We're having to do several workarounds with the Mac. And so as much as I enjoy the Mac, I think that would be really the only thing. Other than that, all the Abila software, all the other software, I think I have pretty much everything I need back there to do everything.
I think to add on to Tammy's point on that, one of the benefits of, and the village moved into the cloud right before COVID happened, which actually allowed everybody to work from home and to do all that, because it would have been a nightmare otherwise. But one of the benefits of that is that PCs tend to be quite a bit cheaper than Macs. And even with the new Macs coming out, like you said, they're pretty expensive, but on the PC world, they're pretty, we're talking anywhere from 20 to 40% cheaper in system costs. So being able to replace machines, we can replace, 2 machines for the cost of what we were paying 1 machine for in the past. And so that's one of the benefits of the environments as it is right now. And because of that, we can, like tools like Tammy's using, 90% of the world functions off of with a Windows environment for that type of stuff. And so it helps some of that integration a little bit better. And then also allows us to focus on upgrading, where things need to be upgraded that are technology related, but aren't necessarily desktop related, like the security systems and different things like that. So I think that's the PC environment works better in the PC world. The Macs are great. We love them. I love them. That's everything I have, both personally and professionally, is Mac, but it's a lot more cost effective on the PC side.
Okay. Is Tiffany available? Can we get her in to ask that
On
question?
wish list.
I can grab her.
So,
But I'll ask you, and I don't know if somebody can get Tiffany.
yeah,
Back in.
we can go get Tiffany, but I will say, Mayor and trustees, is we did ask staff to give us their wish list.
Mhm.
And we put everything in.
And I gave her my wish list, by the way.
And he had a good wish list, 2 trips to DC.
Good, okay, good. No, but that's good. You
Oh,
know,
really?
Believe
Last year,
me.
that wasn't a consideration. It was
I
like,
understand.
Well, I don't know if we have it. in the budget.
So we did, we put in, including a vehicle, which we haven't talked about. I mean, this is a really great budget, and it's really satisfying everyone's needs and wishes and wants, and we're still in the black. So I feel like we can get her and see what else.
No, but if you've got them
dream
already,
big,
that's great. That's
But
great.
that's how we started our budgeting, is by asking all the team, what would you like to do? Including training,
Mhm.
hoping that things would open up and travel would be available.
Anything from you on general admin that's not in this?
No, I'm really comfortable with where things are. I think having had the conversation with Kiko yesterday about some technology upgrades. I don't think I realized, like, for example, our switch, which is our whole backbone for the computers and the entire infrastructure, is in our mop room. And it's just been kind of band-aided together over the years
It's
because
not,
we
not,
buy
not,
things
not a good situation.
off the shelf. And if we put a little dedicated money into that and got a real seamless system, it would allow us to do a lot more, like have something at the front door where somebody could, you know, ring and Amalia could buzz them in or something like that. Or when they're coming to the door, we can do some screening. You know, there's all kinds of things that you can do once you have a more upgraded backbone. So I guess that would be a concern and priority.
Okay, thank you.
Point of clarification, Mayor, on just for my own purposes, is there a typo in lines 43010 account and 45165? I show, for instance, in the water rights that 6,000 is even, so that should be a 0% growth. Is that right? Or am I reading that?
Which department are you in?
I'm in the general fund account.
Yeah, that should be zero. It should be-
45165.
Yeah, it should be zero.
Should be zero, and then the first line item, mileage reimbursement, should be 100% increase.
Yes, so I will check
That's
those.
correct.
And I would check the entire column down.
Sure, check
Just
the
as a
column.
glance, it just noted it.
Sure, good catch. Beautiful. Okay, if there are no further comments on admin, let's move in.
There,
Go ahead.
sorry, Mayor, there's one other comment. I did notice my human error on lines for the subscriptions and memberships and telephone. In your blue column, which is the fiscal year actual, those numbers are actually incorrect. And I want to just make sure that we change those. So for subscriptions and memberships, the actual number right now should be 1457, which would mean that we have an increase there. And then on the telephone, the actual number is 16782. So I just want to make sure that we have those clear, and I will make sure to get this updated.
Are you talking blue column or green column?
Yes, the blue
Blue.
column.
So what did you say, telephone?
Telephone is 16782.
So it should be down a line. Subscriptions or the subscription number should be telephone number?
Yes, and the subscription number is 1,457.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. It's 10 a.m. Do folks want to break now or break in 15 to 30 minutes? It's up to you people.
Great.
We're going to break. We're going to break for 10 minutes. Thank you. everybody hear me? Good. Do we have any more questions on admin for either Ann, Tammy, or Danielle? Okay, let's move into public safety. Ann.
All right, thank you, Mayor. So on public safety, this is Fred's contract. And Fred has just proven himself to be invaluable this year. He is wonderful about interacting and liaison as a liaison with Bernalillo County Fire. He knows Chief Perez really well, but most especially with Bernalillo County Sheriff's Office. He brought the new captain,
Chris Romero.
over to visit with Mayor and me and staff. If there's ever a problem, morning, noon, night, we call Fred. He tells us the situation. He gives us advance warning on things. He's
Right.
been wonderful. The reason you see his annualized number in the blue column here at such a significant decrease from 2020 is because we were able to charge a lot of his time to the CARES Act. It's one of the things that we told the state that we were going to charge to was for safety. And so we were able to decrease that. Now, so next year, we brought it back up to 20. It's down a little from 2020 because he's reducing his hours. Any questions on safety?
Is there a reason that he is decreasing? I mean, are we gonna try and supplement that, or is that just gonna stay kind of?
Here's what I understand. Let me interject. Fred teaches classes, and he's also on the planning and zoning department for the city of Rio Rancho. And so I think he's flexible. And so I think he just told you that he was going to cut his hours a little bit, not because he really wants to or needs to or anything like that. He'll still handle the job of public safety in the village exactly as he always has. And he has such a good relationship with the fire department and with the police, with the sheriff, that it's like a force multiplier. You call him and a few minutes later, he gets the answer for you. So if there's something like I tour the village every day, to see what's going on, especially early in the morning. And I see all kinds of stuff that people don't normally see during the normal workday. So I'll call Fred and I'll say, Fred, what is happening over here? Like I did the other night when I was touring. And like 30 minutes later, I get an answer. That's pretty good service, in my opinion. Okay.
And I would like to add also the reduction in hours. I'm not sure that he mentioned he would do another reduction. The reduction actually came between 2020 and 2021. So when we got into this new fiscal year in 2021, he actually had said, I'm going to reduce my hours a little. And then CARES Act happened. And so we didn't have as much expense, but I don't think there's going to be another reduction from 21 to 22. It was just, we didn't really see that in this number here because a lot of it's charged to the CARES Act.
Okay. We now get to go to facilities and parks. Keen. Go ahead.
Testing. Good morning, trustees, mayor. So we plan on spending, our street maintenance projects. We haven't done a sign audit in a few years, so that was the major thing on my list I would like to do. A lot of them right around this area have been replaced, but when you start going north and the side streets, they have not been replaced. So we're looking at spending $7,500 to $11,000 on replacing signs that do not have the reflectability that should be there. We're working on replacing also some LED streetlights, the Chavez Osuna kind of mall transition there. We're going to replace those next year at about a $2,000 cost. We also spent a lot of money last year on tree removal, and we're going to put in another $10,000 to do tree removal or tree trimming within the village area. And we're going to try to get some drainage done on Schulte by the school, and then Rio Grande kind of by by the bridge. It always builds up when it rains a lot on those certain areas. For building and structures, the barn needs a little bit of stucco work. And then the parapets at the village hall there, they need a little bit of either restuccoing or a silicone. And so those are the basic needs for the village this year. Of course, village maintenance of the vehicles, it's about $3,000 to maintain just this new street sweeper, and that's just oil changes and broom servicing. That's not a huge amount of work. Even the small street sweeper costs about $2,000 a year to maintain, just like the tractors. They need major oil changes, hydraulic fluids, stuff like that. We are putting in a request for some more equipment, and the big thing that we're asking for is a leaf vacuum system, and that will help us obviously save time and man hours. We think we can use that here and maybe even on the parking areas on 4th Street. And that's what we're going to be spending the money this year. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Keen, if I'd like to interject, when we built 4th Street, we knew that there was going to be maintenance, lights, leaves, keeping that thing clean, because before, the wind would just blow everything around and that would be the end of it. But not today. We can't leave it just sitting out there. So I think that explains part of it. And then we've got more 4th Street to build. So, we're going to be adding to our maintenance workload as we move forward down in the next year or two. So I just wanted to say that.
Question on professional services, animal control. I noticed that we had very little last year, looks like. Very little budgeted as well. And then now we got a big increase there. And that 0% is not correct if these numbers are right. Can you explain that?
So Ann's probably better at that than me, but as I understand it, it's for a contract for cats to be spayed and neutered. And we were getting that for free for many, many years, and they stopped accepting that until we got a contract in place. And so that is the big increase on maintaining spayed and neuters for stray cats.
And also, if I can add, that line item is for anything that Dominic needs in animal control. So if he needs new cages, if he has to take a load of animals over to the dump out on the west side, all of that comes out of that line item. So he's hasn't had any need for new cages in the last couple of years, but I did see a few of them that are potentially getting a little older. So he may need some of those coming up this year as well.
We did just spend $900 on a new freezer for the dead animals. So that was literally just spent and would not be on the budget you wouldn't see that yet.
Okay. And just point of clarification too on rental of equipment and machinery. I like that you've got that in there. So you're free to rent, and that would be 100% increase.
Yeah, so we didn't use much last year. We used an aerator. We just purchased, or we just rented that. I do sometimes use a Bobcat, a little backhoe, stuff like that, we just didn't do this year, but it's important to have that because we will need it sometimes. You just sometimes don't know.
Thank you, Keen.
So who has the 2010 Dodge Charger?
So it was Fred's vehicle for years, and it's sitting out here as a temporary vehicle. I use it sometimes. The guys use it sometimes. It is utilized, just not that often. But it was for public safety originally.
And is that a mover or a mower?
I'm sorry, it probably is a mower.
Mower.
It's a mower. Okay, any other questions for Keen on facilities, parks?
Yeah, King, you have a wish list?
I know we're still keeping our budget. Some of the wish lists or things I've looked into are quite large. I think the village hall could use restuccoing at some point in time. But this is none of these things that need to be done immediately. And I still all of us still need to get a grasp on what we're dealing with after COVID. And so I haven't put in a huge wish list. Also because my wish list is your wish list. So you guys need to tell me what you guys want done and I'll get it done for you.
So Keen, I'll interject. This stucco out here looks awful. It's been looking like that for a long time. And I was going to ask you, when did we stucco this place and when are we going to stucco it again?
So this was the original stucco,
I
I
know
believe,
that.
to the building. And, I did look at to stucco and maybe 5 years ago, we looked into that and replaced the windows and it was around $50,000. I can imagine that's a number's a little bit bigger than that, but if you're interested in doing that, I mean, just like the bathrooms we've looked into, possibly
ADA.
doing that. ADA compliance, maybe reworking how the electronic room is, shared with the wet room. We have a lot of space because we have bathrooms in there, we have showers in there, so it could be reworked. Maybe engineering this year on that to really get a budget together on that might be something that we could look into. But we would need to hire someone or really kind of make, just for a design kind of thing. I had a couple contractors out here, but they couldn't do it without really a good design because it needs engineering.
And that would be appropriate. My view is this building was constructed everybody moved in here in the early 1980s. Is that correct?
Correct.
1983 sounds like the right number. So we're looking at almost 40 years. And this remodel that we just finished was just done. And it really has improved, the functionality, the appearance. But there are structural issues in this building that are going to have to be dealt with at some point in time.
What's our roof like right now?
So the roof is getting close to, it's probably a 2 to 3 year in need. We've done some patchwork 2 times since I've been here, and that's kept it, doing pretty good. I've had a couple different roofers come out here. They say you need to rip off that foam and, start over. I've had a couple different guys say, no, you can just put a PTO over what you have existing now. There's a little bit of gravel, so you have to take that off. So it definitely is going to need to be done in the next couple of years. It doesn't need to be done this year. Just like we did the remodel, we can show you what we can do with you guys, getting some nice things done here. But yeah, it's getting close to that time where we're going to have to spend money on, it's not just updating, but it's maintenance, major maintenance to maintain the village hall. And of course, we were kind of kicking around the can, idea of moving it at one point in time. And it sounds like that is not something we're going to do. And so, if not this, not necessarily this year, but next year, I would like to see some good money in the budget, to redo those things. I can imagine just counting the numbers, $250 to redo the bathrooms, front doors, new windows, new stucco, and it would definitely give an amazing look and an updated look.
And I want to say one more thing, members of the governing body, trustees. Keen and his staff jump in and they do painting inside here. They find a person to come in and put the carpet in. They install like your shades and stuff. So we have a staff that is just exceptional. They're really good at what they do. And so when they tell us that there's something wrong or there's something that needs to be fixed, I believe them. It's real, And so there are needs. There are maintenance needs that are going to have to take place in this building over the next probably 2 years, in my view.
Is the county still utilizing the
Yes.
garage?
Yes,
And is that that's in cooperation?
Yes.
With them?
yes. Yes, it is.
So,
The beauty of that, Trustee Riccobeni, is the police presence that's here. Every morning at 6 o'clock, there's 2 sheriffs sitting right out here watching the people go by. And then every so often you have a nice contingent of police, including your basically your vehicle that they use when they have to go off road and everything else. I really like having them here, to be honest with you.
Keen, inevitably with equipment, every year there'll be a major repair that wasn't expected.
Do you have something like that budgeted in here?
So obviously it doesn't cost $1,000 to maintain some of these stuff. We've got a little bit of leeway for, if a big expense comes up. I know the mayor has asked to, start swapping out vehicles because they are starting to get, age-wise, in general, like my Expedition 2006, the last 2 years I spent about $3,500 on maintenance on it. Not a major amount, but that was, kind of high. That was one of the higher ones. The former street sweeper actually used to suck up our budget big time because it was having some issues, and I would take it in and it would be $8,000.
Right.
This newer street sweeper we have is definitely newer. We ended up fixing most of the issues ourselves last year. It's a little bit easier to work on, and it's similar to the old one we had, so we've been able to learn from that, and so we've saved a lot of money just in general fixing those things. You just never really know when something's going to go, but in general, all the vehicles are working really well. We haven't had any, animal control has only oil changes. The Ford 250, basically oil changes. Also the Ford 350, oil changes. Now that's diesel, so it does cost more to maintain when, just sweeping out major things. The yellow tractor, we spent a huge amount of money 3 years ago fixing that up, but it always has, leaks, seal leaks. It's not running right now because it's got a seal leak coming from the emergency brake. And so in general, we don't have too many issues, but, and we spent a whole bunch of money 3 or 4 years ago on the small sweeper, fixing that up. And so in general, it's mainly, we haven't had too many issues, and I don't perceive having a whole bunch of issues on just basic maintenance.
What would you replace first of the vehicles?
I would probably start with the Expedition. It's just the colors. It's just sunburnt. It's sunburnt.
It's a 2006.
It's a 2006. It's got one of the higher miles on there, almost getting close to 90,000. And that would be the first one I would start with. And then honestly, maybe the animal control after that, because he has a pretty good amount of money, or that one's also got a lot of miles on it, about the same as mine. And it's utilized a lot. He goes out to the west side a lot. But in general, the vehicles are running pretty good. It still looks good. Those are other things. I certainly, for the Expedition, I would not buy red. That came from the fire department. So it was just a hand-me-down.
And I asked Keen about that this morning because, we've been operating for the last 15 years with hand-me-down, and someday that's gotta change. We need our own.
Well, and I'm asking because I think there comes a point, if something's going to cost $5,000 to fix it, is it like, we budgeted that we're going to have to buy a new piece of equipment, whether it's the Expedition or street sweeper or something, where you just stop throwing money into them. And so that's why I was asking.
Well, so the only one that really is a problem, maybe the bucket truck, but for the cost of me replacing possibly the engine is nothing compared to buying a new one.
Right.
And so some of the vehicles that we have do make sense to keep, just keep them going.
Right.
Specifically that one, because, it's an $80,000 or $90,000 replacement, and you can buy a used one for 15, but then you don't know what you're getting.
Right.
We also don't use it all the time.
And we don't use it all the time, but it has a generator on it, so it's an amazing tool for the village to have, plus an air compressor. And so it has everything that you would ever need, So that'd be the only one. We throw oil in it. We don't drive it very often. I don't really think that the engine could go, but it has little odd things, and it burns a little oil.
Is that what you use on Fourth for street lights, for the lights up,
Lights,
over the street?
Trimming trees. We didn't do a lot of tree trimming this year, but we did last year. That was what the guys did last winter, was tree trimming around the village here specifically, trying to keep everything.
Let me offer another comment, Trustee Lewis, on your point. When you purchase vehicles for a municipality, you can use the state price agreement. And the state price agreement can get you the same vehicle for about 60% of what you would pay on the outside. Plus you don't pay tax. So that's the biggest advantage when you're buying any kind of vehicle, a truck or whatever it might be. You just go right to the state price agreement. They've already negotiated with the dealers on that vehicle and you're getting it for quite a bit less money.
Right.
And if I could interject also, Mayor and trustees, any vehicle purchase, it actually comes out of capital. And we do have a vehicle budgeted for this year, a new vehicle.
Okay. What do we have? Just a one in
have-
mind or?
We are thinking of replacing the Expedition with another SUV type vehicle that can be, the seats can fold down for utilization of the back. We can use it to run people around the village if we need to. So we're thinking about a Ford Explorer type vehicle.
The Explorer that I saw, and I showed it to Keen and I showed it to Ann, is you can put 7 people in there because the back, it has that third row seat. So, and it's modern, obviously, you're going to get better gas mileage and everything else, and it's under warranty. Okay, that's the other thing. But you can put 7 people in there. But on the other hand, you can fold the seats down and you've got all this room for tools or audiovisual equipment or whatever it is
Right.
you might want to use. So
I think, yeah, I just think there's a point. I mean, that could replace the old trolley when it was taking the trustees
well,
around.
that trolley is another problem. We'll talk about that if you
Yeah.
want.
Uh,
Trolley and the ambulance are on the
Ooh.
Move them
disposal
along.
disbursement list.
Yeah. Is there a community we can hand them down to? Okay, thank you, Keen. That's my questions.
Can I just have a question with regard to the street sweepers? That's a hard one to say together. Percentage wise, what are we using? I would assume we're using the larger street sweeper more often than we are the older one.
Actually, so the older one is designed, it just basically just pushes dirt off. And so we use that specifically for Rio Grande. And we do that weekly. And so that's the bike lane on Rio Grande. The big street sweeper is used at least monthly on 4th Street for curb and gutter. It's in our EPA stormwater is to maintain that curb and gutter. And so we sweep that up monthly. We actually maintain and kind of estimate how much we pick up from the curb and gutter. And we have to turn that in actually to EPA, that information. So we try, and then of course we have to now use it a lot for the LED, north stormwater to maintain and make sure that grout is clean of debris and everything out of there. And so that is what that street sweeper is utilized for. We also go all the way up north 4th and we go on to El Pueblo to take care of a little bit of curb and gutter on El Pueblo, which is right next to the apartment complexes and stuff like that.
And that's monthly.
And that is, so monthly is the curb and gutter here south, and then quarterly I try to get up north. Because it's not something that's mandated, but I just like to keep it clean.
Thank you.
I think some of that, you said earlier that the demands on this department are growing and with the addition of 4th Street and more of 4th Street. And so I think it just behooves us to start looking at and planning on equipment replacement or preparation for it. Where we're ahead of the curve versus being behind the
I
curve.
totally agree, Trustee Lewis. You're right on the money. You're speaking what I feel. Okay, any other questions for Keen? Okay, let's move on to agriculture. Ann.
Thank you, Keen. I just want to also
Thanks,
say,
Keen.
Keen did a great job with the remodel.
Oh, yeah.
As you might remember, we budgeted 50,000 and the whole remodel, not including the air conditioner that we put on the roof, came in at 21,000.
Right.
He did a great job.
Well, I just want to tell you about the Edgewood Park. I did talk to Herman, who planted that grass. He said that's a best view of K31. This is kind of a standard grass. Now, we do keep it cut long because it's irrigation water. And it's not that we only get water every other week. And so we don't keep it manicured as we would a park. To be totally honest. So if you want any changes, one irrigation system or a sprinkler system in there, it would be quite expensive.
Keen, if I could interject, when that park was purchased, grass was installed, and then we added to the grass. We all knew that we were using irrigation water from the ditch to water it. Well, now you're not going to be able to water every other week. The MRGCD has already told us every 3 weeks. That's going to be a big time problem, especially on our fields over there at the Agri-Nature Center. And if they run out of water come July, there won't be any water at all. So that grass may just be dead.
Right, and so Herman says to review the whole thing, you're better off with that grass. Anyway.
Probably.
It's really hard to rip up old, live grass and basically till it back in. It's extremely hard, not impossible, but it can be done, but.
So Mayor and trustees, we're having this conversation because we've been getting some complaints from the residents that the grass at that park is coarser and not like a typical park grass. It's, and if we want to put playground equipment in there one day and really move that telephone pole and really give that a nice community park feel, it's going to need some work.
Yeah, it's more of a pasture.
It needs a big
And that's what it was intended to be.
Big plan, if you want, because I can do everything kind of at once, or at least even know where the playground layout is. Right now, I have sprinklers, water lines running through our playground equipment right now, because it wasn't necessarily planned before it was put in.
Right.
So, and it doesn't make sense if you have sprinkler, lines running under your playground. And so I would just recommend us looking at the big picture of what we want to do with that location. And again, we can make anything happen that you guys want.
Thank you
I do
very
have one question, sorry. So that playground equipment has been there for a long time now. I know, yeah, my kids were playing on that.
Oh, yeah. My granddaughter's over there all the time.
Yeah. What is the lifetime typically of playground equipment?
So I know when the mayor came on originally, that was one of the things he was interested in trying to get changed out, and we can do that. We've done some research. It's about $75,000 to put back what you have right now. We have done, we've upgraded the bridge itself. It was very slippery a few years ago. We've changed out some things. So it's actually, we've extended the lifetime probably for another 5 years. And we've maintained it. So it's in pretty good shape, actually. The gentleman that sold us that stuff, he looked at it, all this is about, still pretty good. Now it's not the new stuff. I mean, we put in some new stuff, tried to update it. We've been about $8,000 three years ago or so. And, it's safe. It's safe. Now there's nothing slippery. There was some decking that was starting, the rubber was starting to come off. So it was basically kind of at its last leg, and the ribs, kind of extend its life for another 3 to 5 years.
But that is probably something that we need to think about moving forward.
Oh,
It's
yes.
not gonna last forever.
That's right.
And
I
so
agree.
when you change it, and you can't use sand anymore, so you've got to put in the wood chips, and just that wood chip swap out is about $20,000 just to take the sand out, put the wood chips in. So, again, you want to, we kind of looked into it just for pricing at that point in time. And, we looked at putting workout equipment kind of around the workout center, around the walking trail. That was about $15,000, depending on what you want to do. You can do over 10, so there's lots of things that,
Can be done.
can be done for sure.
So let me offer this comment. When that park is open again, I mean, it's open now, but once the barn starts to get used for the weddings and all of the stuff that happens over there, and they start seeing people, milling around the park, people start to use that playground. You haven't seen too much because of COVID, but it's going to come back to 2019 and 2020. I would take my granddaughter over there and it'd be full of kids running around doing everything else. So it's utilized and it will be utilized. So.
Well, and again, just going back to the master plan, I mean,
Sure.
our hope is to bring younger families back. to the
Exactly.
community.
There you go.
And that's got to be
That's right.
a reason.
I totally agree. Totally.
So, Mr. Mayor, can I ask you, will we, if we find out we get this money,
Yes,
will we sit down and discuss, then have a separate meeting to discuss wish
I think
list
we are going to have
and
to.
how we'll budget some of these
Absolutely.
different kinds of items and kind of make a
Absolutely.
priority list?
I say yes. I say yes.
Good, I do too.
Totally. You bet.
And Mayor Trustees, as soon as we know any stipulations on that money, we can definitely disperse that as well, because we have not heard yet if there's any restrictions on that money and what we can use it for.
Right. Yeah, I don't want us to get carried away, but I think we ought to plan. I mean, I know you see articles on some of the other communities and some of them sound like they're running crazy, spending money and others
Well,
are being prudent about it.
To make a quick comment on that, I know the city of Albuquerque saying they're going to get their first $57 million they're going to get. Rio Rancho's going to get their money, and they've already decided how they're going to spend it. I don't know where that guidance came from, but we have some guidance, and I think the guidance that we already have is in the ballpark. So we'll get official guidance here, I think, pretty soon.
Well, and I agree that we should start spending it till we get it.
That's right.
So nice to talk about the wish list. So I
Right.
get different departments, different people's feelings. Okay,
Okay.
Steve,
So
thank you.
thank you, Keen. Okay, let's move into fire. Ann and
Sure. Are we at fire?
Wait, egg? Egg.
Yeah.
oh, ag. I'm
So-
sorry, ag. Correct.
So
Yes.
Mayor, trustees, we're doing awesome things down at the Agri Nature Center. We really stuck to the budget this year. And a lot of that, in addition to new programming, and a lot of that was because of grants that Fergus and his team went after. So we were really fortunate that we didn't have to pull a lot from our own money. We used other people's money. So that was great. Next year, the biggest change is in the agriculture program support. In fiscal year 2020, you'll see we had $6,000, 6,255, and we only spent $1,500 in this year. But next year, we're not sure if we're going to get some of the continued grants that we've been getting, but we're going to continue to go after the grants. And each one of those grants requires a match. The other thing is we are going gangbusters on this AgriFutures program. We have approximately 100 people that have attended those AgriFutures meetings. It's really exciting to see. There's a lot of community interest, involvement, excitement. So in order to continue to keep that effort going, we would like to keep money in this part of the program budget for facilitation services. Right now we have Dan Gary has been helping us out for a really nominal fee. He's also helping us reach out and try to acquire some new grants. And every time he does that, he adds in some admin for his time. So that's been really helpful. We've extended an offer to a new program manager, and we're waiting to hear back. But so far, we had great candidates, and we are really confident that this next program manager will have all kinds of ideas, and we want to make sure that we give that person ample program budget. So that's the reason for the 10,000.
And will this person have the background in terms of applying for grants, that kind of thing?
Yes.
So that's not going to go away?
Of course not.
Oh, no.
Or that position went away?
The position?
No. When Fergus left, just want to ensure that the next person is going to have those same kind of qualifications in terms of.
I think we're going to, Trustee
Dixie.
Pacheco, Mayor, yeah. We're going to go beyond where we've been. I think you'll be really happy.
Okay. Any other questions for Ann on agriculture? So let's then now move into fire, Ann and Tammy on the fire.
Mayor and trustees, so the fire here is for the EMS services and fire services that we contract with the Bernalillo County for, and we don't have any changes in that MOU, so we don't have any increase in that line item.
Okay, that's a good explanation. So now we're to the roll-up capital projects, Ann and Tammy.
All right, so here we are on page 7 of 35. And you'll see overall that our general fund expenditures are very conservative. We even have excess in revenues over expenditures. I did want to mention that I periodically have conversations with the former Administrator Kelly Ward to just find out. Sometimes we come upon funds that we're not utilizing now, but were created for a reason. And one of the funds that we have that we've kind of puzzled over, because we haven't seen any capital outlay language related to it, any restrictions per se, is this fund to acquire property.
Right.
And there's about $500,000 in there. And as you remember, last year when we were worried that the bottom was going to drop out of the economy, we were looking to see if we could potentially use that as our own rescue item. But fortunately didn't touch it and didn't need to because we had other sources come in, and then our GRT ended up being okay. In conversations with Kelly and you all who were on the governing body in P&Z in the past might recall, the village set aside about between 250 and 300,000 every year into this property acquisition fund. And that's that 311 fund that you see at the cash report every month. And what that was as the village was trying to acquire property for Village Center, rather than have to do bars and or even bond the funds, that they would have a little cash in hand that they could go after and just purchase. So that fund was used to acquire the properties on the north side of Osuna, which ended up not being a part of the Village Center outline as it turned out, but now are set aside as a green space as we enter the village from the east. All of the properties around Village, where Village Center is, as well as, I believe,
The park.
the park. So
And the parking lot.
and the parking lot,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
So we are pitching to you all to take $250,000 in our excess and move it into that fund. That would give us about $750,000. And as things come up, we can jump on them. One of the things that we are eyeing is the Anderson property. That is a property that is adjacent to the Agri-Nature Center. The Andersons did sell some of their land. Well, of course, they sold their winery to us for the Agri-Nature Center. Then there was a subsequent sale of about 10 acres, 7 to 10 acres from their home property that we were able to take from that fund and purchase. And that squared off and created the 25 acres that we have today. We've gotten word from the Anderson family, Mike Anderson, that they are not quite ready to sell, but they're getting there. And they want to have a conversation with the village and give us right of first refusal. But we would need to have money to leverage a bond, money to put a down payment, or some kind of access to capital.
Right.
So we thought, given that we already have $500,000 in, we could start to build that up a little bit. And we have a great budget today. We're in really good financial shape. We've gotten all of our wishes for the most part. And we thought we would put that aside. That restricts that money, puts it into savings, and, we can even add on to it next year, and then, every year kind of build, and it builds quickly.
So let me interject to refresh everybody's memory. If you look at the audit report, you'll find a section in there that talks about what the village did in 2007. They went out and they got $3.6 million of bonds. So our budget now is paying those bonds off, and we have that money set aside to pay off the bonds. So it really has no effect on our budget. So we can do that again, if depending upon, our financial position. And so I think we're in a really good place to negotiate. I mean, that's the correct word, really, with this family. And I think that's where we are.
Mayor, and so what are we talking about in terms of additional acreage with the property that they would maybe be interested in?
Let me tell you what I know today. I've been doing research on this. They have a 7-acre tract, a 9-acre tract, and a 12-acre tract. There's a total of 28 acres. There's a house also, there's a home, beautiful home. So I think when you get down to the negotiating table, you have to decide what it is that you want and what you're going to use it for. And then how can you afford it? So that's in essence what we're talking about. So there are 3 different pieces of property.
And when they say they're almost ready, I mean, are we talking a year, 5 years?
I don't even know. I personally don't know. We haven't actually, I'm trying to remember who talked to Mike Anderson the last time. Did Kelly say anything?
I
Or maybe
did.
you did. I know Mike Anderson extremely well. I know Patty Anderson very well. I have not spoken to that family, but I think maybe you,
We
okay.
did call and we had a conversation, and it's just a conversation that the family is starting to have. So,
As it's one of those, I think, as the parents get older,
Right.
they're, I don't think the kids want the land or the house or. So I was just doing some rough numbers, 28 acres at 325,000 an acre would be 9 million one. I don't know that we're gonna have much negotiation power with them.
Well,
Because
and you may be right.
developers will flock to that like nobody's business.
Of course.
And so I think it's going to be a balance of more open space versus sort of a pilot community housing, cluster housing, whatever people want to call it. Sure. That is going to encourage these young families back. I just went and looked at a development in California, and one of the things they did in their development is they have 5 working farms on the property. So they have a head of agriculture, and then each farm has, and it's community volunteers. I see. And if you volunteer, you get to take produce and stuff home. I see. And they have little stands that they just open up a door. If they haven't sold all their produce, they open up the door and residents and people can drop by and buy the produce that's grown at the farms. And it's really a cool concept. So I think there's a lot we can be doing with it, but I think you're right. It's gonna be a chunk of money. Unless it's like, hey, we're gonna go after these 2 chunks and leave that to a developer, knowing that it's gonna be something that's part of our master plan to providing more kinds of housing.
You bring up a good point. Thank you.
so then there's a couple other things I want to talk about. If you go down to this capital buildings and structure, you see 306,000. That is for, we are just placeholding that there, but we want to do something with Old Village Hall. It's something that we've been talking about for a long time, and it's going to require money either way. If we demolish it, we still have to mitigate all of the hazards. If we remodel it, we have to mitigate the hazards. Right now, we don't have a community center. The community center has been Village Hall for many, many years. We also have expensive equipment in the hall. There are security risks. It's a new day with letting people into the village building after hours without staff present, et cetera. If we are able, and we did get a quote, Keen worked with a company, same company Facility Build that did our remodel here and under budget and really well. Just to mitigate the asbestos, the lead, open up the windows a little bit more so you see out onto the courts, and then upgrade the bathrooms. Just those simple things, but to get it in good working shape. Also, I think some of you remember that HVAC and that big old heater, that all has to be redone. We can get that whole thing set up for $170,000. Currently, the Boy Scouts have been using that facility. In fact, they've been using that facility for the last 40 years, and they're very wedded to it. It's also a private organization, so it's considered anti-donation if we fix up the building for the Boy Scouts. So we have the idea to fix up the building so that it can be a multi-use facility. And we envision card tables, a simple kitchenette kind of setup where you have maybe a coffee pot. People can go over there and enjoy themselves. It's in a beautiful part of the village, as we know. Pickleball courts are getting a lot of use. The wheelchair basketball folks love to go in and play basketball. It's very well utilized, but it does need this fix up. So for $170,000, we can fix it up to a shape that the community can really use it as a multi-use facility. What we envision perhaps with the Boy Scouts, and they're willing to clean it up and remove all of their items, is while we're building it, we could build a little L and just have some lockers and have that be more of a community space. We can't give it to the Boy Scouts, but it can be a space for them to rent, or we could create some kind of an agreement like we do with the growers, where they use our parking lot without paying us rent, but give back a community service. And
Right.
Scouts do tremendous community service. They come to our BOT meetings, they do the flag presentations, they build benches. So we could create something where they could have a space with lockers or whatever, but that the building becomes more of a multi-use facility.
Let me offer this comment about the Boy Scouts. This is what we want our youngsters to be involved in. Let's be honest about it. And Girl Scouts, I'm sorry, not Girl Scouts, but women can now actually be a part of it. And so I think, continuing the agreement where the Boy Scouts can actually, use part of that facility is really a good idea. It always was a good idea in my opinion, but it's unsafe now. The place is unsafe. It's just unsafe. So we need to deal with it like pretty quick.
As I mentioned at the last BOT meeting, you asked me the question. We got a firm number on the demolition and just rebuilding a real simple structure. It's twice as much as just fixing it the way it needs to be fixed. Now, we could do something really simple, like you recommended before, Trustee Lewis, where we do like a pavilion, but it's cold here in the winter, and a lot of our HOAs meet in January and February.
Well, they come in here.
There is no other place for them to meet. The other reason we're thinking about Old Village Hall versus the barn, for example, I know we all took that tour last summer. The barn has no bathrooms. It has an open ceiling. It doesn't have a foundation, and it's sitting on a potential archaeological site. So plumbing out to the sewer line at Rio Grande is going to be very expensive. This already has access to sewer and water. It's already a structure that the community is comfortable with. And now we're seeing more use of the courts, which is really great. So that's my pitch.
And I guess my pitch is, I agree with the community center. I agree with the Boy Scouts. I love the idea. It's the wrong building. I mean, it was a barracks built in 1940 something.
Right. It was Old Village Hall.
It's old Village Hall. And you know, I lived catty corner to it. And I just think it's past its useful life in any way, shape, or form. And I'd hate to see us put 170,000 in it, only to continue to,
Decline.
rot away. Yeah. I
So-
mean, I'd much rather see us, if we're going to commit to that, then
So
we commit to it.
We could budget for new construction. And that was about, for the most simple structure, was about 275.
I think you can, I just think you can do a much more functional system and make it new versus patching. And
Well,
that's
let me
just my
offer,
stance.
let me offer this. I mean, you are right, Trustee Lewis. New construction is the way to go. Because then you design it exactly the way it should be, okay? You're gonna spend another $100,000, but just between us in this room, we have it. We have the
Well,
money.
and if we're committed to it,
We have to be committed.
then let's commit it,
Yeah, we have to be
you
committed.
know, and that's just where I come from.
Sure.
I saw that barracks and I thought, holy smokes, the fact that we haven't had a big problem yet, and maybe we've all been waiting for lightning to strike it, where
Literally.
it would go away. Just the mitigation, you still, that just opens a can of worms that they get everything, it's
Yeah.
total. And so I think with the pickleball courts, if we're gonna use that land, then I'm all for a new build there.
Okay,
Okay.
I do feel like we have, again, some point, we gotta sit down and make a strategy on the barn.
Yeah.
of
Are we
course.
gonna take it down? Are we gonna keep it?
Well,
Can we take it
People
down?
do love the barn for the way it is.
Exactly.
Sort of rustic
Weddings
feel.
and the beer fest
Oh,
that we have.
I think it's a great facility. Again, I think it's one that you've got to make a commitment to. Or even the Agri Nature Center. If we're doing all this work on it, can we add 200 square feet? We've already got bathrooms there and we've already got connection to the sewer. And here's our little community centers added to the farm.
We're actually doing some of that. You
Yeah,
can
and
talk
so,
about that.
I mean, I feel like we've got all these really cool options
We
that
do.
we need to commit to.
Yep.
What we're gonna do.
Right.
And I'm all for the community center. I'm all for keeping the Boy Scouts going as long as that organization can go. I mean, they're under so much pressure.
Right.
I don't know where that is gonna go 5 years from now. They'll even be a Boy Scout.
Sure.
But, so that's just my 2 cents worth.
Just on the Agri Nature Center improvements, we are getting capital outlay. We have $500,000 already. So we have Night CV designing some things that we can do right away. Obviously, the larger classroom idea is a few years away. But we have funds now to do some minor improvements. We can put an outdoor classroom, we can do an outdoor pavilion, we can improve the bathrooms there. And we can take that tarmac kind of asphalt that's on the north side of the building and refurbish that so it's more usable. So we already have ideas and we have capital outlay
Right.
funds for the Agri Nature Center, which is
Right, but
great.
I see some of that as an overlap. Can we just convert it, can we tweak it a little bit to where there's our senior center and there's our Boy Scouts meeting place?
You mean at the Agri Nature
At the
Center?
Agri Nature Center.
I haven't
I mean,
actually thought of
Then
that.
you spend 170 to get rid of, or 170, you said, to take it all down. And you got 100 left to put some kind of shade structure there if you wanted, that's really cool, or you've got 100 add to the budget at the Agri-Nature Center. I don't know.
Well,
I think they take some real, I know you guys sit and talk about it a lot.
We
do.
A lot.
One of the reasons we've sort of steered away from using the Agri-Nature Center for seniors and Boy Scouts and others is because we're really trying to focus that on an agriculture center of excellence versus, because it's a slippery slope. Once you bring in the groups, then they want to have weddings and quinceaneras, and then it becomes a larger, heavily trafficked competition to Los Poblanos. And then the vision and the vision for the Agri-Nature Center gets muddied versus something here. We already have the land. It's shady. I mean, I have no problem putting a new facility up if that's where we want to put our funds, and we've gotten a quote for it and we can do it. And we can also build in a rec room for groups like 4-H and Boy Scouts and others. That's no problem.
Yeah,
We've
but I
got
guess my
money.
concern over there too, you know, the neighbors are fine with it until it's under parked. You know, if you get 30 people there, I don't know where cars are gonna be. You know, and then all of a sudden you got neighbors coming in here going, hey, they can't park up and down our street. You know, that little cul-de-sac's been a quiet little cul-de-sac for 70 years or whatever.
It's small. I don't know, Ann. Have
It's
you
a small
thought?
footprint.
It's small. I mean, it's not large. So I don't know that you can have a huge group in there personally. I think over,
And then that limits, and that's good because that limits the size.
Mhm.
right.
They were only gonna build 200 square feet or
Mhm.
something. Because we're just, you know, it can
Yeah.
handle groups up to,
And honestly, I think that's more in keeping with the village. and
Right.
The feel of the village, and most neighborhood associations are sort of small. The only larger one is Cannon Farm.
It's a cozy building, if you want to be truthful about it. And I really think that, you know, having that small community center for seniors and for the Boy Scouts to use and HOAs to have their meetings, folks who go over there just to have lunch, and maybe they have kids or teenagers out there playing pickleball or basketball or whatever it is. I think it's perfect use of that land and that structure. But the structure has to be modified. I mean, I think we have to make that decision.
Right.
Okay?
Well, I think we have to be clear on what the use is.
Exactly. You bet.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
And right now, it is solely the use of the Boy Scouts.
Right,
And I think
today.
it's our building. We need to reclaim it. We need to make it a multi-use facility because we are just not allowing the HOAs into this facility any longer, and they need a place to go.
Well, yeah, and there are Girl Scouts and there are.
Oh, yes.
you know, other
4-H.
organizations that are involved.
Mhm, absolutely.
4-H,
Mhm.
huge, you know. and
Exactly.
It would be great to have a place for them.
well, I think though, again, you gotta say, we're
Where
gonna
is
build a building that has an occupancy load of 30 people.
Absolutely.
And that's it.
Absolutely.
It's in a neighborhood. and we have to respect that.
Exactly.
And if you get, you know, I mean, some of these senior centers draw tons of people and then they want a kitchen and they want,
Exactly.
you know, and it's like, this isn't,
And
this is
we have,
built as a little meeting place.
exactly. And we have to also keep in mind staff. One of the reasons we thought super simple, you know, we have docents with keys or we loan, they come here for the key. And there's a coffee pot, good, it shuts off. I mean, that's it. We don't, and you know, we have our staff come through and empty the garbage, but that's it. I mean, we're not
Low
in there, low maintenance, exactly, because we know what our capacity is. One other thing I wanted to mention, sorry. One other thing I wanted to mention was, so you can see there's more than just 170 to 275 in this capital buildings and structure. And it was to resurface the basketball / pickleball. This year we just striped it to see, we brushed it up, power washed it and striped it just to see how much use it would get. And it is seeing regular use, but not to the level of most pickleball structures. So we just thought we would see if we had the funds to really make that a true pickleball facility. And that's what we built in there. We would need about 50,000. So if we're not ready to go full bore on the pickleball, we want to just keep it, you rent your, pick up your paddle balls and your nets here, and then you go over and set it up. That's fine. So we just thought we could budget that in and see, but we could roll it all into a new facility if that's more the will of the governing body. That's the purpose of this discussion.
Can you go to groups, people that really use it and say, here's a donation can, we're taking donations towards resurfacing this or something where you do a public-private partnership of some kind. And I guess that goes back to the meeting that we'll have if we get this federal money, because I see a quickly growing demand on the maintenance department. And
No question.
And pickleball will take precedent over a new tractor or sweeper or whatever. I think those are going to.
Here's the thing to consider, the 1.43 million, if in fact there's very little strings attached, we underspent our budget by $1 million last year, $1 million, which means we didn't spend that $1 million because of COVID. So now we're coming back and we're going to be spending kind of like we were in 2020, but we have another $1.43 million. We can prioritize that money on things that we absolutely have to have. It all depends on what are the strings, what are they going to allow us to spend it on? Today, we don't have that final answer. We have guidance, some guidance, but I want an official piece of guidance, okay?
Because I think a lot of that's determined also by the master plan, It's got to be a combination. I know people would love for us to acquire more open space, but we also, it was loud and clear in the master plan that they want alternative housing options.
Exactly.
To try to bring in families.
Exactly.
Yep.
Go ahead, Ann.
Tammy, was there anything else on the roll-up that you wanted to talk about? That capital equipment and machinery for 30,000, that's the vehicle, to bring a new vehicle into the fleet. We discussed. Anything else?
There's one item that was missed on the building and structures. We've budgeted in there $86,000 because Miller's Feed needs to be connected to the sewer. They're on a septic right now and it's a failing septic. There's two options with that. If we have to go the route that's higher, it's $86,000. And that would be without an easement through somebody's property. If we could get the easement, it'll only be $18,000. But we did budget the higher because we don't know if we're going to get that easement. That is something that we need to take care of as soon as possible. So that was the other item in that 306. And then the other item in capital for road and street improvement, we have $25,405, and that's a a match for phase 2 of 4th Street, and for some money that we did receive. So we have that there for our match. But I think that was it. I guess I just want to be certain. I know we had a lot of discussion just now on the Capitol buildings and structure, so I just want to make sure we're all on the same page of whether I move something, whatever we need to do to get the numbers correct so that I can get this budget ready for the BOT meeting. So I just want to.
We can put funding in now for a new structure there at Green Valley and see how it goes. Is that the will of the?
Well, let me throw you just talking.
I look at it if we're going to end up building a side structure on the thing for the Boy Scouts to be able to do storage and lock, whatever they need, it just feels like we're better off to build a new building that's got these, this ready. Maybe we can preserve a piece of the siding or something. Because I know that there's historical significance to the building, and that's a strong draw to save it. And but at some point, we've got to either commit to an old structure or put in a modern facility.
I'm in favor of new. I really am.
I am too, and it concerns me because we've got people pushing us towards, the Schulte House on us, and we got this barn, and now we got this old warehouse, this old village hall, and it's like, wait, we're either gonna bury our maintenance department, or we gotta make some decisions. And I'm just gonna throw this out without giving it a lot of thought. But what if you sold that piece of property?
No.
No, wait, no, wait.
I won't support that.
No, and you built new over by the tennis courts, and you're gonna put you've got parking over there, you're not in a residential neighborhood, you build new pickleball courts, and now they're resurfaced and they're good pickleball courts.
I just feel like that piece of property is special to the village.
I agree with you on
Okay.
that, Trustee
I mean, that's
Pacheco.
just my thought, and, I kind of go the other way, and I understand new building and efficiencies and, everything that comes with that, but we can't forget our history, and I understand, I can see it's gonna cost a fortune to repair and get it up to the standard that we need it to be, but I also feel like it's really important that we keep our heritage in the village. And I'm not saying that a new facility wouldn't be beautiful and built to
Specifications, yeah.
what we
Right.
have come to know and love. But I certainly feel like we need to keep that property. I think it is a part of who we are in our history, and I think that selling it would just be not a good thing for the village, in my opinion.
The property itself,
The
right?
property itself.
So, and I would agree with that. I'd agree to keep the property. And I do question though, the building and making it, getting it to where it's properly partitioned. It's got to slide across. If we're gonna let the Boy Scouts use it, let them have their stuff on the wall. You know what I mean? I
I
mean,
agree.
they have to take it down now if we're gonna make it multi-use. And maybe we can fix it up in a way. But I'm not an architect, so
Nor-
I don't know what's gonna fit on that property and where we are and how it would be,
And we have to explore it. I mean, we wouldn't
We
be
should
doing our
explore it.
jobs if we didn't look at what something new would look like versus what's there. I have just a sense of keeping old and beautiful and preserving, but that's not always, not always the way to go.
And I don't disagree with you. I have a certain sense of that. That building,
Yeah.
to me, does
especially
not,
that-
well, it doesn't fall in there though. It's the neighborhood I grew up in. But
Right.
that building, it has done nothing but house the Boy Scouts
For years.
for years. And, I don't know if anybody for years used it as a basketball court or a tennis court at all.
It was rare. It was
It was
rare.
very rare. And so I just think, I think that building's just gone past its
Right.
life of,
Well,
you
the
know.
great thing is we are in a good financial position to do something this year.
Mhm.
Last
Absolutely.
year, we
couldn't have done
really
anything.
do anything.
Yeah.
But we were able to clean off the courts and at least get those better utilized. And then just using in-house labor, we got the grounds, in better shape.
And it does look fantastic.
Thanks.
I mean, it has.
It really
definitely
does.
improved
Really.
it's improved the street
For sure.
considerably.
Mhm.
And so,
And then just as a rebuttal, the putting a community center by the tennis courts, we continually get some complaints from Caballero Norte.
and that was just a brainstorming idea, just throwing it out
Lighting,
there.
noise.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think we have to look at everything.
We do.
What's most beneficial for the village and our residents, and what's gonna draw in young residents, et cetera. So that's what.
I don't have a problem leaving the line item in the budget. But the way that we use that money, I think that we need to think that through completely.
I totally agree.
And we have a little wiggle room. You can see down here, we have 171,871 excess revenue over expenditure. And we still have a very tight expenditure general budget. So we have a little wiggle room. We can move some of that in. We can decrease the amount that we put in the land acquisition fund. because we were able to put 250 over and still have 171,000 excess
I'm
revenue.
all for moving the money into the land acquisition.
I support that.
Okay,
And-
so 250.
And
Okay.
I'm all for keeping that in the budget, the capital buildings and structures. And let's look at
Options, options.
Sounds
I
good.
like
Well, we
that.
will definitely do some research and get them back before you.
For the transfer into the land acquisition fund, normally our transfers happened at the end of the fiscal year. Is that something that we're wanting to move prior to that? It can happen at any time, but the way we normally do it is we wait till the end of the fiscal year and do our transfers then. But I just want to make sure with you guys, if we're wanting to do that earlier in the year, that I have a note to do that.
I don't have the timetable for it. I mean, in the fiscal year, I don't, the Andersons are known for moving very slowly. I don't see us having, it's nothing that's going to happen in the next couple of months, so.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. The final item before we talk about the Rescue Act is 311 grants, property acquisition. I think we already talked about property acquisition. What about 311? What did we want to say?
That was the, those are the revenue funds. And was there anything in particular we wanted to talk about? With the I think we covered everything, actually.
Okay. And grants, you mentioned, you talked about grants. I think
Yeah, we
we're-
have the match in there in the agriculture program area. We have this $25,000 match for the road improvement, and we're also going.
Where are you at? Are you, what page?
Just talking generally about the 311 fund.
Have we ever considered, and I'm just gonna go back to this grant situation again. I mean, I've always come from the place that you should use other people's money.
Of course.
When you can. Have we ever thought about, putting some money into the budget to just have a grant writing person, staff member that might do it part-time? I just feel like we're missing probably some good amounts of money out there, that maybe we're just not even, seeing. I'm just thinking out loud.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's excellent, Mayor and Trustee Pacheco. I would say that we do have money in the budget for Dan Gary, and he's been great about getting funds for the Agri-Nature Center programs. And then between the mayor and me, we have grant experience, and I've been on the lookout for economic development funding. We both have a lot of things that come through. The Municipal League is fantastic.
Also, I'll just tell you about an initiative that Ann and I are kicking around. We are thinking of bringing in economic development from the state, Alicia Keys and that person that you know. And as soon as we're ready to do that, I think we're going to have some other ideas about how to move forward with grants and all that. As far as a person is concerned, I mean, obviously you can always find somebody part-time who could do it, could do, but they have to have leadership. They're going to have Ann and I, giving them guidance.
Absolutely.
And so I think maybe we need just a little bit more time to flush that out, but you're bringing up a great point.
And
A
as a
great
matter of
point.
fact, if there's ever a grant that we want to go after, but we don't feel like we have capacity in-house, the Grant Plant is an excellent organization, and we could just hire them to put something together. for
Exactly.
us.
For just a particular project.
Yeah. for a
Right.
project.
Absolutely. You bet. Okay, we already talked about the Rescue Act. I don't know that there's anything else we can say about that.
At this time.
The
I
only
don't
other
think so.
thing I was going to mention, because Mayor, you just brought it up in terms of economic development. One of the things that we are looking into is, again, depending on what kind of restrictions come with that money, setting aside some funds for economic development in the village. Either some like Main Street improvements, like there's all kinds of things like you can do facade grants along your Main Street. We could explore more assistance to small businesses like we use the CARES Act money for. Depending on what the restrictions are, we are tossing around ideas of ways to leverage that money for economic development.
Well, we have to keep to our mission, right, of Fourth Street. And
Absolutely.
developing and encouraging, I think we have to spend to get.
Yes, you're right. Okay, so we're now to the point of an open question and answer. I mean, anything that the governing body would like to talk about before I adjourn this meeting?
First, I'd like to say, I think you all have done a great job on the budget. Very impressed with what you guys put together.
Thank you.
How you guys are operating. You know, it's been excellent. I think, I really feel like it's not a master plan session, but I really feel like there's almost a planning session
Yes.
needed to really talk about, as a governing body, where we want it to go in the next 5 years and where we want to keep on task and try to have that out there. I think the hardest thing for any government is to keep it going through turnover of trustees or governor or mayor or whatever. And we're trying to really stamp something in place that we know is gonna, over the next 6, 7 years, new trustees or whatever will keep us on that path. And so I really would like to encourage us to talk about the opportunities in front of us and, you know, have a couple hour session where we're just brainstorming.
Yeah, Mayor and Trustee Lewis, if I could, we actually had a facilitator all lined up to do our little retreat
Yes,
back in whenever that was going to be, March or April. And
Right.
then we're not able to meet until now.
right.
So happy to put that back on the agenda. It would require a special meeting and, but maybe when we get guidelines from the Treasury on CARES Act, we can put it all into one planning.
That would
session.
actually be a fantastic approach. I would like that approach a lot.
That would be more of a long-term planning session.
Well, it could be one to,
Sure.
I guess what we don't know, what we really don't know with this rescue plan is there an end date to spend the money? We don't know that. So if they tell us you got to spend it in 1 year or 2 years, that's going to dictate how quickly we start spending or how long we can take to do our planning. Okay?
Mayor, do we have any idea, and you may have mentioned this, when that communication might happen?
Well, the email that we got yesterday, Ann got it and I got it. And the email is saying that the first block, the first 50% of that money is actually going to be in the hands of the community on June 10th. Do I believe that? I want to believe it, but I don't have anything official. You know, I'm waiting for the state. The state government is flowing through. I believe it's flowing through state government. So I'm waiting for an official word. Yes, you're going to get a check or you're going to get this money on June 10th.
But will they then tell us?
They're going to, I think they have to. I don't know how they can get away with giving you money and then telling you,
Say, yeah,
So
you gotta hang on to
you
it.
got to hang on to
There's a
it.
lot of governments that already spent their money before they got it. And so
I mean, the city-
the guidelines have
Yeah,
got to
we're-
be there.
We're in the black, which is awesome.
Yes. So this is even making us blacker.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And the other thing that's nice about it is that I don't know how they're getting guidance, but the city of Albuquerque and Rio Rancho already say they know how to spend the money. So where are they getting their guidance from? Somebody's giving them some guidance. I don't know who it is. So we're going to get our hands on that guidance as soon as we possibly can.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think that planning session or the retreat, whatever you want to call it, would be ideal to happen at this time.
Do
I agree.
we want to try to get feedback from the community on ideas? I mean, that's sort of opening a can of worms that, you know, somebody will want us to have a chicken coop here and this there, and, you know, it could get crazy, but is it something that we, you know, we're as elected officials, they've entrusted us to move the village forward, or do we want to hear from constituents somehow?
We could consider this, Mayor, part of our ICIP community input.
I think we have to do that. I think that would be a legitimate approach. Obviously, you don't want to exclude the community. I think that's an improper. So I would rather see us be open, completely open. And I think the retreat can be a setting like this, personally. Now, whether
You could have public comment. I mean,
Yes, you can open the period for public comment, whatever that time frame is. So that way we can include those notes into
Right.
the planning. So we have that opportunity. In addition, Kiko and I were just discussing how you want to move forward in going back to in-person meetings so we can start our preparation and planning. I don't know if you want to include that as part of today's discussion, but we may want to just throw that out there so people can start thinking about how we want to get back to that.
My goal is for us to be back in person by July at the latest. But that assumes that the state is fully open on June 30th, just like the governor has told everybody. So I don't know what else to do. I just think that's one way of approaching it.
I think it's important that we get back together.
Oh, totally.
100%.
So, Mayor, trustees, I think my input to that would be just to encourage you guys to make decisions with regard to what that looks like, not just the in-person, but what it looks like for our recordings and or live streaming or whatever.
Correct.
Because we need to put the infrastructure into place if things are going to be different than how we did it before. If they're just the same as how we did it before, where we just record the audio and we don't have to change anything. But if we are going to do something different, we need to make those decisions now, because
Yes.
that infrastructure has to get put into place before that first live meeting.
Kiko, I would say that this whole period of COVID has shaken things up in terms of what's available to the community now.
Right.
My opinion is I still feel like we need to live stream. I think that's just going to become kind of
A norm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I think we've all gotten used to that.
Oh,
And I
yes.
think the community at large, there may not be people that are comfortable yet or ever coming back to a live meeting.
I think there's a whole lot of people from a year ago, live streaming, what the heck's that? And now I think there's a
Now.
whole lot of people that are just comfortable. Hey, it's
Yes.
trustee
Provide
meetings.
for that. We should provide for somebody to be able to go ahead and
Log
come
in.
in and log in and make a comment and yeah, absolutely. Let's make it all available.
I do agree. I really do.
And I don't know, this is a little bit outside my purview on this, but I would kind of like to bring out the cautious side of live streaming. And that just, it gives a window now to not just the people who want to be a part of this, but especially in the polarizing political climate we live in. You know, everything's public, everything's recorded now, and that will live forever. So I just want to make
Right.
sure that is taken in consideration. And I don't know even if at some level security is provided during the normal town halls right now.
We
Yes.
have a sheriff that's.
Mhm.
that's
Yeah,
standing
so
in the back.
then, but that's just something to think about.
Sure.
It's a different one. It's just recording audio and stuff. So it will be a forever video record of whatever happens.
That's correct.
And all that. So that's just, I want to throw that out there to make sure once you guys jump off that cliff.
Right, and right now we have the beauty of Zoom where Kiko, if somebody gets, out of hand, we can just kick them out of the meeting, whereas when we're in person, it's going to be a different environment. So we just want to be careful that we all think about that before we make any huge decisions about how we want to move forward. We'll definitely support your decisions either way. We just want to make sure that we plan accordingly in moving forward.
It's a great comment.
That being said, it sounds to me like we need to study that.
Yeah.
So this is one of the biggest teaching tools at Clerks Institute. They usually bring up videos of other town meetings that live stream where they do get into arguments, fistfights, et cetera. So
Oh, yeah.
you never know what's going to happen when it comes to a live situation and how people are going to react because they're different in person versus, exactly online. So just consider that. We don't have to make that decision today, obviously, since we aren't in a position to make decisions. We're just in a budget workshop, but I want you to make sure that you start thinking about those concerns and ideas, et cetera.
And I would say from the technology side of it, we're moving into, I mean, if a decision could be made by the next board meeting, and the idea that that there would be, if the decision is to continue where it seems like it's going to do the equipment and to get the equipment in here and all that, we need enough time to do that. And so there's the May board meeting, right?
May 12th,
The May
June
12th.
9th.
My recommendation would be that if we're going to do that, we try to have everything into place by June's board meeting. And June's board meeting could still be Zoom type meeting, but you all are here, up here, and it's live streamed without anybody in the room at
That's a
that
good
point.
idea, actually. That's actually a
In
pretty
order
good
to do a
idea.
test of it, and we could still do the Zoom side of it. But then that gives us an opportunity to work out some bugs, if there are any bugs, for when we go to the July meeting when people are actually present. And that would be my recommendation from a timeline, if the July meeting is the timeline.
That's excellent. That's a good-
Very good recommendation. Excellent. Okay, anything else on the Q&A side before I adjourn the meeting?
Again, everybody did a great job. Wow. I mean, it's just amazing that it was obvious that a lot of thought has gone
Oh,
into
yes.
this budget
Oh, yes.
and each line item. So kudos
Thank you.
to the staff.
Number one, good job, guys.
Thank
Really.
you. Thank you very,
Mayor,
very
good
much.
job.
With that, I'm going to adjourn. It is 11:37. Thank you, everybody, for attending. Wonderful meeting. Tom, I need your time for